proclaim globalists. I don't think they're real globalists. I think they're political globalists. But globalists hate Bitcoin. And they hate the 1800s with a passion as well. It's interesting that here's something that's they don't like a potentially global institution, a global cryptocurrency that they don't control. So they're globalists only when it comes to things under their control.
That's an excellent point. I hadn't thought about it. You would think that the sort of globalist progressive people who are always going on about, one world and one world government and so on, they'd love it. But no, you're absolutely correct, because it exposes their agenda. It's not really about having the world being open on one another. It's really about having the entire world being controlled by people with their agenda who think the same thing that they think. I hadn't thought of it that way. It's a great point.
Well, we're about out of time, but, it's great that Nassim Taleb is associated with you. It's great that your book is on a large publisher. And he has this incredible quote on the jacket. He says, look, even if cryptos like Bitcoin fail, now we have the tech. We know we can do it. I just wonder if just knowing we can do it, if that alone will act as sort of a de facto check on central banks. In other words, that crypto's even out there, does that force them to maybe be a little less expansionary?
Yeah, the other day I was giving a talk in Toronto, and it occurred to me that, even if Bitcoin doesn't succeed, all that we need is maybe, if Venezuela, if it sets an example for Venezuela, that more and more Venezuelans start moving, let's say, towards Bitcoin, then it forces a bankruptcy of the current socialist kleptocracy in Venezuela. And then a new government that comes along in Venezuela will know that, if we mess around, people can just defect from here to Bitcoin. Maybe Bitcoin doesn't end up being adopted all over the world. Maybe it doesn't end up being a new monetary standard, but it acts as a sort of, the metaphor I gave is a sort of monetary Batman lurking in the shadows of every society, so that, anytime a government begins to inflate, people can just start moving towards it. And as they start moving towards it, because the supply is limited, the value rises. So it's a very attractive notion for people to start jumping onto it. So maybe it's just going to be this, this bad guy that is going to force discipline on governments. And there's another scenario, which is, I think, the most likely scenario if you wanted to kill Bitcoin. The most effective way to do it, all of the scenarios that people give is governments will ban it, or they will shut it down, or they will close the internet. And I think these are highly unlikely because they don't address the economic incentives. And as you know, economic incentives are very powerful. So, you can, in Russia, they tried all sorts of things. They tried to ban jeans in the Soviet Union. And now, look, the Soviet Union is gone and everybody's wearing jeans there. So, economic incentives are more powerful. And I think these ideas for banning Bitcoin won't work. But one way that you could maybe at least make a serious dent in Bitcoin's growth would be to restore the gold standard. If everywhere in the world had sound money, and you had a free market in banking, and people had the ability to have bank accounts that respect their privacy and respect their monetary sovereignty, I think that would seriously undercut demand for Bitcoin. And I would personally be very happy if Bitcoin's entire, if it turns out to be just a head fake that gets us back on the gold standard, it would have more than done its job, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of Bitcoin books out there. There's a lot of crypto videos you can watch. You don't need any of them. You need this book, The Bitcoin Standard, by our guest, Saifedean Ammous. Follow him on Twitter. That's the easiest way to keep up with him. It's just at Saifedean, Saifedean.
Subscribe to Mises Weekends via iTunes U, Stitcher, and SoundCloud, or listen on Mises.org and YouTube.